I read every single skill feat in Pathfinder, so you don't have to. Starting off, we are measuring each feat in a tier list, because those do so well on this platform. A is very good. Everyone should have this if possible. B is alright. If you jam with it, you should grab it. C is decent, probably good if you have nothing else to pick. D is very situational. They are only good in one specific case. And at the bottom, F. Don't get this. I'm not going over archetype feats, because that would require me to review the entire archetype. Just know that some archetypes get skill feats too. Also, some of these feats are rare or uncommon, so clear with your GM before putting them on your character sheet. This is, of course, my opinion, and a review with no context of your game. If you're using a feat I called bad, you probably found yourself in a scenario where it works. And if you're not using a feat I called mandatory, maybe you don't need it. But for everything else, there is the comment section. Starting off with the core rulebook. Additional lore. You learn a new lore skill. At a level 3, 7 and 15, you can increase your proficiency in that lore. Strong start. The increase at higher levels means you will remain smart through the campaign. Solid B. Alchemical crafting. You can craft alchemical items. Alchemists get this for free. But if you want to fully roleplay Geralt of Rivia, it's not a terrible thing to grab for your fighter. Arcane Sense. You can cast Detect Magic for free, and it is heightened depending your Arcana proficiency. Free spell is always welcome, and you could create hilarious situations where the fighter detects magic innately instead of the wizard. C. Assurance. You can forego rolling a specific skill check, but you only add your proficiency modifier. Such a simple feat is so complex, so interesting. If you're an expert in medicine, you can automatically succeed. Treat wounds to heal an ally, or you can use an athletics check to shove, grapple, and trip as your third attack action without multiple attack penalty, only proficiency. There's a couple other use cases, but outside of that, that's it. Assurance is an interesting feat with very specific use cases. Bargain Hunter. You can use diplomacy to earn income while performing downtime activities, and you can get a discount when buying items. If you or your GM want to dig deep into earn income calculations, go ahead. You might save some good money and a decent deal. C. Might be worth the effort. Battle Medicine. You can treat wounds as an action. Your target can't be treated again for a full day. If you have the wisdom modifier of not 0, it's a very good thing to grab. You can save your ally from death once per day in combat. That's absolutely an A, and it does not stack with regular treat wounds. So outside of combat you can still help them out. Catfall. You descend slower. You treat dangerous falls as shorter depending on your proficiency in acrobatics. Probably very useful in a flying suplex combo, otherwise too situational. Charming Liar. You improve the attitude of a character when you lie to them. Now you can gaslight the NPC into liking you, just like the girls around you. If there are any. If you forgot to get diplomacy, this is a fix for you. Combat Climber. You aren't flat-footed when climbing, and you can climb while holding your weapons. If your campaign takes place on a mountain, I guess... Courtly Graces. You have learned how to mingle with the nobles, allowing you to present yourself as a graceful member of the court. You can use society to make an impression instead of diplomacy, or to impersonate a noble if you are not actually one. Unlike Charming Liar, this gives you more flexibility with your skills. Since society is an intelligence skill, lore-heavy classes can benefit from this. Also, it leads to a few interesting feats later. Dubious Knowledge. When you fail a recall knowledge check, you learn a true piece of information and a false piece of information instead. This is such a good feat because it allows you to still get some information when you fail a check. It does impose more work on your GM, but that's what they're for, right? Experienced Professional. When you use lore to earn income, if you roll a critical failure, it's a failure instead. If you roll a failure, you earn twice as much as you would have earned. If you are role-playing a business tycoon, this isn't a bad feat to grab. Helps you keep your investment safe and become the sugar daddy of the party. Experienced Smuggler. When you try to smuggle a small item, your GM uses your secret roll or 10, whichever is higher. If you're legendary in stealth, you automatically succeed. In combination with some feats we will look at later, you can effectively rob someone blind. Very fun. Experienced Tracker. You can track prey more effectively. Somehow the ranger doesn't get this for free. Every ranger should get this. Everyone else can pick something else. Fascinating performance. When you perform, you can fascinate a creature for 1 round or more, depending your proficiency. This feat is crazy. Sure, you need to crit while in combat to succeed, but it means you can fascinate a caster and clear all the concentration effects for 1 action. And it has an upgrade, so that makes it a must-have for everyone with performance. Forager. You automatically succeed at foraging, and you can forage and take care of multiple creatures. Are you in an exploration game? Would you like not to be in one? Grab this, and you will never have to grab food ever again. Group coercion. You can coerce 2 creatures, or more, depending your proficiency. Keep in mind you must be in a conversation for a minute to attempt a coercion. If your build can take advantage of this, sure, but the 1 minute restriction is very bad. Group impression. Same as coercion, but with diplomacy. Same as coercion, but with diplomacy. Hefty hauler. You can carry more stuff. You know what else can carry more stuff? A bag of holding. Don't get this. Hobnobber. You gather information twice as fast as normal, and if you crit fail, it's a regular failure instead, but only if you do it at normal speed. So do it at the normal speed. Impressive performance. You can make an impression with performance. Combined with fascinating performance, this makes a solid bard feat. Intimidating glare. You don't need words to look menacing, meaning you can intimidate things that don't speak common or any language. Solid choice, be for sure. Lengthy diversion. When you successfully create a diversion, you can stay hidden for longer. Pretty alright, but not as good as hiding immediately after. It does save you some action economy, however. Lie to me. You can use deception instead of perception to determine if someone is lying to you, but only if you're in a complete dialogue. Was pretty solid until the last restriction. If you take this, make sure to talk to everyone thoroughly. Otherwise, it's a D. Multilingual. You learn 2 new languages, useful in some campaigns, not so much in others. Natural medicine. You can use nature instead of medicine to treat wounds. And if you are out in the wilderness, you get an additional +2 for using fresh ingredients. Great bonus shooting this up to a B, giving the druid and a ranger, and everyone with decent nature, more healing options. Oddity identification. You gain a +2 to identify occult spells with a mental, possession, prediction, or scrying traits. I don't need a +2 to identify this as a bad feat. Even if you get this, well, you will likely forget you even had it. Pickpocket. You can steal an item in a pocket or being held, but not one that is hard to remove or actively held. When you reach Master, you can steal items in combat for 2 actions. While it isn't good on its own, it leads to some very good feats later, so I have to give it a C. Quick coercion. You can coerce someone after a round rather than a minute, but not in combat. So what's the point? Quick identification. It takes you less time to identify a magic item, ongoing effect, or location, from 10 minutes down to 1 action if you're legendary in the appropriate skill. If you got the space, I guess you could go for this, but I don't recommend it. Quick jump. You can long jump and high jump as an action instead of 2. Someone, somewhere, is cooking a jumping build. Quick repair. You can repair an item in a minute. 3 actions if you're a master, and 1 if you're a legendary. If you have a shield and it breaks, you can repair it in a single action when you're legendary. This is a must-have for many classes. Quick squeeze. You can squeeze through small spaces, 5 feet per round, rather than 5 feet per minute. This is terrible on its own, but it leads to an amazing rogue feat later. So A for rogue, F for everyone else. Read lips. You can concentrate really hard and read someone's lips. While in combat, you're considered fascinating while doing so. This should just be a thing you can do, not a feat. Recognize spell. You attempt to identify a spell being cast on you. If you critically succeed, you get a +1 in your saving throw against it. I mean, the crit effect is very good. but your GM is likely going to say, "And you just got hit by a fireball." So, why even bother?
Sign language.
You learn sign language. While I do believe sign language is very important in real life, you shouldn't spend a feat to learn it. Skill training. You become trained in one skill. Or you can wait for your next skill increase. T, because there might be some use for this one. Snare crafting. You can craft snares. A prerequisite for an archetype that's very good for rangers, and actually snares are very good. Specialty crafting. You get a +1 in a specific crafting specialty. Very good for alchemists, shield bearers, because they have to fix their shield, and flavorful roleplay too.
Steady balance.
You have incredible balance and fall less easily. Why are there so many falling feats?
Streetwise.
You can use society instead of diplomacy to gather information. This works a little differently than courtly graces, but it's effectively the same feat, but for rough and tough people that live in the streets and have no friends. It even leads to the same feat chain.
Student of the canon.
You have read the tenets of your faith and can recognize falsehoods. This is the only feat in the game that allows you to turn a failure into a success. It's a shame it's so useless, but it's so flavorful. Actually, in Proverbs 16:70, it says,
Subtle thief.
Observers have a -2 to perception when you steal something, and when you create a diversion, you can steal something without breaking your concealment. Very strong and very useful. Lots of love for the kleptomaniac thief.
Survey wildlife.
You can spend 10 minutes to assess the wildlife, and if you do, you determine the types of creatures around you. This should be a survival action instead.
Terrain expertise.
You get a +1 to survival while in the specific terrain. Somehow, this is better than favorite terrain. Somehow, it's still bad.
Terrain stalker.
Pick one type of difficult terrain. You can sneak through it without rolling stealth. There's probably a combo where you can make your entire party hide in rubble, but I don't see it.
Titan wrestler.
You can disarm, grapple, shove, or trip creatures up to 2 sizes larger than you, or up to 3 sizes larger if you're legendary in athletics.
The legendary suplex build grows stronger.
Fairly good for everyone else.
Train animal.
You can teach an animal to perform an action, teach your dog how to trip your opponents, and enjoy their suffering.
Trick magic item.
You can use a magic item even if you don't normally cast spells of that tradition, meaning the wizard can cast divine spells, or the fighter can cast spells. B. Very funny. Very good.
Underwater marauder.
You are not flat-footed while underwater. If you're in a campaign with boats, this might come up once, but even then, it's not that good.
Virtuosic performer.
You gain a +1 to one type of performance, or +2 if you are a master. Very simple and very good. We take free bonuses here.
Automatic knowledge.
If you have a trained skill that can use recall knowledge, you can have assurance in that skill. You can use assurance to recall knowledge for that skill. You should be able to do this without this feat. Get out of here!
Bonded animal.
You can make an animal permanently helpful to you. This feat is great and adorable until the party dog is caught in the dray of death.
Confabulator.
Reduce the bonus creatures get from repeated lies or diversion from +4 to +2. If you're legendary, they don't get any bonus. Paisagist has something for rogues. You get the best feats.
Connections.
If you took courtly graces, you can spend 10 minutes in a town before the royal family invites you to dinner and promise you to marry the niece of a local lord.
Continual recovery.
Your patients can be treated more often. You can use treat wounds every 10 minutes rather than every hour. Quick disclaimer. In regular treat wounds, it says that you can treat a patient every hour. However, the 10 minutes you spend treating them counts within this hour. So, if that works the same way for this feat is insane. If it doesn't, it's still an A.
Glad hand.
You can make an impression as soon as you meet someone. If you fail, you can still have a 10-minute conversation and try again. Not bad. It lets you pretend the last roll you did didn't exist.
Intimidating prowess.
When you demoralize or coerce, you gain a +1 and ignore language barriers. Better intimidating gaze, but requires strength.
Lasting coercion.
If you coerce someone, they remain coerced for a week or a month if you are legendary. Yeah, just scare people into doing your bidding. Very cool. Very neat. Very...
Magical crafting.
You can craft magical items if you have the space and the money and the time and the patience to go through the crafting system. Take this.
Magical shorthand.
You learn spells faster. You can earn income using your tradition skill, and if you do, you gain a discount to spells learned during that activity. This feat changes entirely how you learn spells. Wizard and prepared casters are going to love this. You are spending less time and resources getting stronger. If you've ever been a wizard stuck with a ton of spells to learn and not enough money, this is the feat for you.
Nimble crawl.
You crawl half your speed, rather than 5 feet. If you're a master in acrobatics, you can crawl at full speed, and if you're legendary, you aren't flat-footed while prone. The improved version of the general feat, Skitter, but not so much more. Probably good for a sniper gunslinger build?
Powerful leap.
When you leap, you can jump 5 feet up with a vertical leap, and you increase the distance you can jump horizontally by 5 feet. How about you leap out of here with this terrible feat?
Quick disguise.
You can set up a disguise in half the usual time, which is 5 minutes. If you're a master, it takes 1/10 of the usual time, usually a minute. And if you're legendary, you can create a full disguise and impersonate someone as a 3-action activity. It's alright, it's a impersonator build staple.
Quiet allies.
When you are avoiding notice and your allies follow the expert, you and those allies can roll a single stealth check, using the lowest modifier instead of rolling separately. Usually when an ally follows the expert, they roll and add their level plus half their proficiency, meaning not everyone needs stealth. If they use this option, they will roll using the lowest modifier, using the champion's modifier, the one that doesn't have stealth. The benefit is that you prevent the paladin from alerting the guards on their own. The drawback is that instead, everyone alerts the guards.
Rapid mantle.
When you grab an edge, you can pull yourself onto that surface and stand. I think what Paizo is trying to say is that we don't have enough dramatic battles at the edge of a cliff.
Robust recovery.
When you treat a disease or a poison, or someone else uses one of these actions on you, increase the circumstance bonus granted on a success to +4. And if the result of the patient's saving throw is a success, the patient gets a critical success. This is a mandatory healer feat, somewhere between B and A. Bay.
Unmistakable lore.
If you crit fail on a lore check in which you are trained, you get a regular failure instead. You still learn nothing, but at least you don't get fake news.
Ward medic.
When you use treat disease or treat wounds, you can treat up to 2 targets at once. If you're a master in medicine, you can treat up to 4 targets, and if you're legendary, you can treat up to 8 targets. More healer feats! Yeah! This is probably the first healer feat you should grab. That or continuous recovery.
Worry disarmament.
If you trigger a device or set off a trap while disarming it, you get a +2 circumstance bonus to your AC or saving throw against that device or trap. Fairly good feat that you should try to fit into your build. Otherwise, you can always send the barbarian to find the traps for you.
Battle cry.
When you roll initiative, you can yell a mighty battle cry and demoralize an absurd foe as a free action. If you are legendary in intimidation, you can use a reaction to demoralize your foe when you critically succeed at an attack roll. Free action demoralize, that's all you need to know.
Bizarre magic.
You can draw upon strange variations in your spellcasting, whether or not you can cast occult spells. The DCs to recognize spells you can cast and identify magic increases by 5. Is there a stealth caster build I'm unaware of? Even then, I don't think this is great.
Foil senses.
Whenever you use the avoid notice, hide, or sneak actions, you're always considered to be taking precautions against special senses. This feat will inevitably cause discussion on how it works with life sense. How will you take precautions to hide from something that can sense life? Are you covering yourself in lead? Dead meat? Why were you carrying dead meat?
Impeccable crafting.
If you roll a success on a crafting check, it is a critical success. Better crafting for free sounds great, because it effectively cuts all crafting times in half.
Inventor.
You create common formulas. If you're missing a formula, you can simply craft it, taking DIY to the extreme. P. If you have the space, you should definitely go for this.
Kip up.
You stand up as a free action. This doesn't sound as impressive as it actually is. When you die and fall unconscious and come back, you are prone and on the ground. This allows you to stand up without using an action. So if you feel you're tasting the ground too often, this is the feat for you.
Planner survival.
You can subsist using survival on different planes, even those without resources or natural phenomena you normally need. So your GM really wanted to have an exploration survival game, but you took Forager early and that completely broke everything, so you got banished to a different plane. Surely you will have to manage resources. Oh, you don't? That's fine, I guess. The way this feat is worded also implies that you don't need to breathe anymore. Does that mean you can survive in a bag of holding?
Or in space. Quick climb.
You climb 5 feet faster.
Quick recognition.
You can recognize a spell as a free action.
Quick swim.
You swim faster.
Quick unlock.
You pick a lock in 1 action instead of 2. All these quick feats should have just been level 1.
Shameless request.
When you request something, you can reduce the DC increase from making an outrageous request by 2. And if you roll a critical failure on that request, you get a failure instead. I know what you're thinking. Not in my table.
Slippery secrets.
When a spell or magical effect tries to read your mind, detect whether you are lying, or reveal your alignment, if that's still a thing when you see this, you can make a deception check against the spell or effect DC. If you succeed, the effect reveals nothing. While I don't think you will get your mind read very often, there's probably a better solution for this.
Swift sneak.
You move faster while sneaking. While there aren't many situations in where it matters how fast you're sneaking, in those situations, it matters a lot.
Terrified retreat.
When you critically succeed on a demoralize action, if the target level is lower than yours, the target is fleeing for 1 round. You remove a guy from battle for a round. This is very good.
Wall jump.
You can wall jump. If the dungeon has ceilings high enough for you to wall jump, it has ceilings high enough for the wizard to cast fly on you. If you're a frog, this leads to a funny feat. Otherwise, this is terrible.
Cloud jump.
Jump 3 times the distance, meaning you can jump 120 feet. Suddenly quick jump doesn't look that bad. Wait, is jumping good? I am taking notes for future content.
Craft anything.
You can craft anything. Literally anything. You don't have to be an elf to make elven boots. You don't have to be a dwarf to make dwarven steel. You don't have to
Be a god to craft a new world to your image.
All of the restrictions apply.
Divine guidance.
You read the Bible and it guides you towards the next plot hook. This is a level 15 feat and you're getting it at level 16. If you don't know where the next plot hook is, maybe you should pay more attention, Jimmy.
Legendary codebreaker.
You can decipher writing using society while reading at a normal speed. If you slow down and spend the full amount of time required, and you roll a success, you get a critical success instead. So if your GM introduces an ancient codex, you just wait until level 15 to fully understand what it actually says.
Legendary linguist.
You can create an in-between language that allows you to understand another creature, even if you don't know their language. Or you can cast comprehend languages.
Legendary medic.
You can spend 1 hour treating a target and attempting a medicine check to remove a disease or the blinded, deafened, doomed, or drained condition. Yeah, grab this, for sure.
Legendary negotiation.
You attempt to make an impression and then request your opponent cease their current activity and engage in negotiations, even during combat, meaning you can command the risen devourer of souls to take a moment and discuss the impact of their policy in foreign territories before they go back into trying to eat the entire world.
Legendary performance.
You attract very important fans. Audiences flock towards you, and you bring on angels and gods to hear your incredible performance. This is an adventure on its own. You definitely want to grab this.
Legendary professional.
Your fame has spread through the lands. For instance, if you have warfare lore, you might be a legendary general or tactician. This works like Legendary Performer, but with every other lore skill. So you also want to grab this. Legendary Sneak. You always sneak, unless you choose to be seen, even when there's nowhere to hide. If you're a rogue or stealthy in any way, this is the feat for you. This is what you've been building towards. Legendary Survivalist. You can survive indefinitely without food or water and can endure severe, extreme, or incredible cold and heat without taking damage from doing so. This is literally going creative mode on Minecraft. You can just chill in lava now, and all you need is to be legendary in survival. Legendary Thief. Your ability to steal defies belief. You can attempt to steal something that is actively being wielded, or that would be extremely noticeable or time-consuming to remove, like shoes or armor. You still can't do it in combat, but an entire encounter around keeping the rogue hidden while he robs the Rod of Undeath Dominion from the hands of the Lich is kinda cool. Legendary Jumper. You can long jump twice the distance you would. If you land on a creature, they break their neck and die. That's not real, I made it up. A+. Scare to death. You can frighten foes so much, they die. If you crit succeed and they crit fail, they die. A hilarious end to the campaign for sure, and an amazing capstone for your fear build. Unified Theory. Whenever you use a skill action or a skill feat that requires nature, occultism, or religion, depending on your magic tradition, you can use Arcana instead. Everything is magic. Deep down below, everything is magic. It's pretty good.
Advanced Player Handbook.
Acrobatic Performer. You can perform using acrobatics. Skill swaps are okay. Armor Assist. You can roll to see if you can don armor faster. Or you can pick something else. Domo. You roll Diplomacy to distract an enemy. They take a -2 penalty to perception and will save for a minute. Or they can spend an action to end it early by retorting to your equip. This is a very cool feat that applies a big penalty to your enemies, or makes them burn an action, and has flavorful roleplay to wrap it up. Concealing Legerdemain. When you conceal an object, you can use Thievery instead of Stealth for your checks. If you're a thief that is somehow not using Stealth, this is for you. Crafter's Appraisal. You can use crafting instead of a lore skill to identify. Actually very good. If you can fit it, you should have it on your craft build. Deceptive Worship. You can use occultism instead of deception to impersonate or lie. It has a very specific restriction, so I'm not entirely sure how useful it is over just having deception, but I like the idea of a bard focused entirely on occultism. Express Rider. You can ride faster when traveling long distances, so you can arrive before your friends and spend the next week solving the mystery on your own. Eye for numbers. For an action, you can count how many items, roughly, are in a group. I can count how many bitches you're getting with this feat. It's 0. Forensic Acumen. You can perform a forensic analysis in half the time, and you get a +2 bonus on any follow-up rolls, like identifying the murder weapon, poison, or creature. See, obviously you want the bonus more than the time reduction, but this is effectively a solve the mystery for me feat. Glean contents. You can discern the contents of a letter that is partially revealed, glimpsed, or reversed. You still need to roll stealth to avoid being detected, so might as well roll stealth and steal the letter at this point. Improvise too. You can repair items without having a repair kit, and you can also craft some stuff. However, the important part that you can repair without a kit. So if you have a shield, you don't have to carry all your kits around. Inoculation. If you treat a disease, your patient gets +2 to that disease for the next week. Useful in a campaign around the plague, ravaging the countryside, perhaps. No cause for alarm. You reduce the frightened condition of creatures around you. Actually very good. If you find your party is getting frightened often, you can grab this to counteract it. Pilgrim's Token. If you tie an initiative with a foe, you go first. Pass Risky Surgery. You deal 1d8 damage first, then roll medicine with a +2 to treat wounds. If you succeed, it's a critical success.
That's how I lost my medical license.
Even if it's a guaranteed critical when you hit, there is a possibility that you don't roll enough in your heal check. Interesting feat. Root Magic. You can grant an ally a bonus on any spell or a haunt effect, but it's only the first time each day. For a +2, I think this is very interesting, but I would prefer if it was all allies instead.
Schooled in secrets.
You can use occultism instead of diplomacy to gather information, and you instantly recognize your fellow cultists. It allows characters with occultism to gather information, and if you combine it with streetwise or courtly graces, you can turn the local gang or high society into your cult.
Season.
+1 to craft food and drink, including potions, and +2 if you're a master. Oh yeah, baby, we take those.
Armored stealth.
Reduce your penalty to stealth from armor. Solid feat for the armored rogue, but there's nothing more terrifying than a silent tank.
Assured identification.
If you roll a critical failure to identify magic, you get a failure instead. If you fail to identify a cursed item, you simply can't identify it. So your DM has to pretend nothing is wrong, this is clearly just an ominous sword.
Battle planner.
You can roll warfare lore before an encounter you know it's about to start. And once it actually starts, you can replace your initiative roll with your warfare lore. Very flavorful, but not amazingly useful. Someone has to scout ahead, and the information must remain true, must be complete, and you must spend a minute preparing the plan to roll lore instead of perception. If my players do this in the table without the feat, I'll just allow them to use warfare instead.
Criminal connections.
When you're in a settlement, you can spend a minute to get a meeting with a criminal boss or another important criminal. Like professional connections, but you don't want your mom to know about them.
Discreet inquiry.
When gathering information, you can hide your true intentions with a deception roll, so people don't figure out what you're actually trying to learn. While very flavorful and narratively interesting, it might not come up that often.
Distracting performance.
If you aid an ally to create a diversion, you instead roll performance and use your roll instead. No choosing the better roll, you just use yours. Also means everything is now focused on you, so run.
Exhort the faithful.
You can request or coerce with religion instead of intimidation or diplomacy, and you have a +2 to the roll. A double skill swap and a bonus. That is very good. Grab it if you can.
Lead a climber.
If an ally critically fails a climbing check, you can roll an athletics check, and if you succeed, they use your roll instead. I mean, it's alright if there are many mountains involved, otherwise it's gonna come up twice.
Quick contacts.
You create a contact network in a day, allowing you to use contacts or criminal contact. If you are legendary in society, you can be smooching the queen in an hour.
Shadow mark.
You are particularly good at following people. If you are avoiding detection while following a specific target, they have a -2 penalty to notice you. Very useful in that one situation.
Terrifying resistance.
If you demoralize a creature, you have a +1 bonus to that creature's spells. This is not where I thought this feat was going, but I'm glad it went that way. Solid B for sure.
Underground network.
When you gather information on a settlement you have contacts in, you can contact a member of an underground network for information, which is less obvious, and you also gain a bonus to additional gather information attempts.
Advanced first aid.
When you use First Aid, you can reduce the Frighten condition of one ally instead. For 2 actions, you can reduce the Frighten or Sicken condition by 2 stages, and on a crit, you remove it entirely.
Aerobatic mastery.
You can perform up to 3 in-air maneuvers. Did you know there are in-flight maneuvers? Neither did I. And so this feat is cast into the wind.
Biographical eye.
You learn details about a person from looking at them. You can learn their nationality, profession, even where they live, from looking at them. This can bring some interesting roleplay and interactions to the table. Doesn't exactly change the game, but it does give an interesting spin.
Consult the spirits.
You summon the spirits of nature, angels, demons, or lingering ghosts, and ask them a question. If you crit, they are helpful to you and answer up to 3 questions, but only give 1-word answer. This is definitely going to be used once and never again.
Disturbing knowledge.
You reveal horrible secrets, tainted knowledge meant to remain lost in tomes and scrolls. roll occultism versus an enemy will DC, or multiple if you're legendary, to frighten and confuse them. Yeah, absolutely. If you have occultism, you must have this feat.
Double speak.
You can transmit hidden messages to your allies in your speak. Other observers roll perception versus your deception to discern a hidden message. You know, this could be an action, but it's cool enough that I'll bump it up to C.
Influence nature.
You can influence the local fauna or flora to obey your command. For example, you can ask the local birds to alert you from danger. This feat allows a ton of creativity, and it is certainly useful. And if you can think of cool interactions you can do with this, comment them below.
Rapid affixure.
You can affix a talisman in a minute, or 3 actions if you're legendary. Ideally, you would burn a talisman, affix a new one, then use it next turn. Talismans can be very powerful, but I don't think spending 3 actions to reload a talisman effect is that great.
Water sprint.
You can run on water as long as it's straight, and if you end your turn on water, you fall into the water. D, it's not gonna come up. If it does, I can guarantee you will fall in water.
Legendary guide.
When you are settling the path for the party through wilderness terrain, your party gains a +10 foot circumstance bonus to its speed for the purpose of calculating the party's travel speed. Good exploration feat? Oh, if only you weren't level 15.
Book of the Dead. Stitch flesh.
You can treat wounds to heal undead creatures. This is a mandatory feat if you have an undead party member or a necromancer.
Character guide.
Backup disguise. You have the disguise you keep at the ready. You can change into this disguise with 3 actions instead of 10 minutes. But you have to remove your armor first, which is a whole minute at best. If you're unarmored, I guess it's worth it.
So, rumor.
You spread false news on the internet for clout. If someone tries to gather information about a topic, they will hear about your new healthcare routine involving bleach and chocolate milk. As fun as that sounds, it should just be a thing you can do.
Entourage.
You have a group of fans in every settlement that assist you with equipment and gathering information. It's effectively a +1 and also free equipment. Shame it's level 7. C.
Dark Archive.
Crystal healing. You can use precious gemstones to heal people, allowing you to heal using occultism. While the gems are much more expensive than a healer's kit, more valuable gems give you a bonus to medicine, which is a very cool mechanic, and says something about the healthcare system in Golarion.
Read psychometric resonance.
With a touch, you can read the psychic impression left on an object by the previous owners. This detects objects with significant emotional resonance attached to them, such as the joy from a child's beloved teddy bear, the sorrow from a widower's wedding ring, or the fear from a victim's murder weapon. You can spend 1 minute concentrating on the object to get a vision of the face of the person who imbued the item with such emotion in the first place. Ah, yes, my compliments to the chef. The flavor of this feat is scrumptious. It changes the way you interact with the world. I love it.
Aura sight.
You can see the aura of a creature by concentrating and not blinking for a minute. You will learn the emotional state, their attitude towards you, and maybe if they have a condition or affliction. Actually very interesting. Might round up your social build and give you interesting mechanics.
Automatic writing.
You call upon spirits from beyond to grant you information long forgotten. You can gather information using occultism rather than diplomacy, and it only takes 10 minutes. But the spirits leave you stupefied 1 from the trance. So, you take less time, swap skill, and have a cool roleplay moment all in one feat.
Chromotherapy.
You can use light from a lantern to treat persistent damage. The rules on treating persistent damage are kind of open. You assist an ally in the save doing something, normally. Having a catch-all solution that works for all types of persisting damage and at range is very useful, but you can't use it when the sun is out. Wow, these Dark Archive feats have all been bangers so far.
Folk dowsing.
You can detect the closest body of water using a pendulum. Ah, there it is.
Morphic manipulation.
You channel your natural aura to make a plant grow faster. A singular plant, 1 stage. This is a level 7 feat.
Skeptic's defense.
You scoff and verbally refute a mental spell or effect. attempting a counteract check using your intimidation with a counteract level of half your level rounded up.
Bah! You call that a spell? It is just sparkles and smoke. Away with you. Firebrands.
Eyes of the city. You can track someone using locals, using diplomacy or society to track your target. I'm sure you can do this with contacts, followers, or any of the other social feats. Redundantly bad.
Fleeting diversion.
If you succeed at creating a diversion for half or more of the targets, you can hide as a free action. Really good. Grab it as soon as you can.
Half-truths.
You can use deception instead of diplomacy to make a request, and you can lie using diplomacy instead of deception. One of the more interesting skill swap feats, this one allows you to double swap deception and diplomacy. If you're making a social build and can't fit either deception or diplomacy, this is the solution for you.
Rolling landing.
If you fall and take no damage, you can use your reaction to step, or with higher proficiency, move. Falling more than 50 feet will make you fall prone. So, if you find you are falling between 5 and 50 feet often, and you would like to step out of the way, this is the feat for you.
Slippery prey.
When trying to escape, you reduce your penalty to -4 and -8, and you reduce it further the higher your proficiency is. It's fine. If your GM likes grappling you a lot, counter it with this.
Tumbling theft.
You can steal while you tumble through an enemy space, and if you do, you get a +1, but only if you crit the tumble check. Oh, so close to greatness. The crit restriction is not worth the investment.
Game Mastery Guide.
Encouraging words. You give your ally a pep talk to help them recover stamina points. If your DM is playing with stamina points, this one's pretty good.
Gods and magic. Charlatan.
You can attempt a deception check to pretend you casted a spell when in reality you used a magic item. So you can roleplay a magic user while roleplaying a non-magic user. This level of roleplay inception is too much for me, but some might be interested.
Mortal healing.
You always critically succeed at treat wounds checks if your target hasn't been healed by divine magic in the last 24 hours. Insanely powerful. Flip off God and let them know you can heal better than they can. This is A+ if you don't have a dedicated divine healer.
Battle prayer.
You can pray to your god and inflict damage to an enemy, but they are immune for the next day. It's a way of dealing chaos, law, good or evil damage, but it's 1d6 once per day. Just cast a spell, dude.
Bless tonic.
When you craft a healing item, you bless it, giving resistance 5 to negative damage to whoever drinks it for 1 round. Very useful if you're in a place with a lot of negative damage, but it's only for 1 round.
Bless toxin.
When you craft a poison, you can bless it. A creature affected by a blessed poison heals 5 points less each round. This is a little better. The fact it's only for 1 round, it's still not great, but at least it's more useful.
Environmental grace.
After spending an hour in an environment with extreme heat or extreme cold, you are protected from those effects until you leave. If for some reason you don't have access to a spellcaster with resist elements, you can take this, I suppose.
Evangelize.
You reveal the truth of God upon a target, breaking their perception of reality. They become Stupefied 1 or Stupefied 2 on a crit, but they are immune to this effect for a day. If they are willing to change their perspective, they are unaffected. This is hilarious and a great effect, but the final clause is just too dumb. Hopefully your GM lets you have a cool moment with this. Otherwise it's a C.
Sacred defense.
You call upon your deity for protection, and they might grant you 5 temporary hit points. Actually not bad. The temporary hit points go up to 15 at legendary, and it only takes an action.
Sanctify water.
You can create holy water or unholy water in a container of light bulk, like a bucket. You can also craft holy water or buy an anointed water skin which always refills itself.
High helm. Contract negotiator.
You can use legal lore instead of diplomacy to make an impression or make a request, and you get a bonus depending how high your diplomacy is. It's alright. Requires you to invest in diplomacy and lore equally to get the full bonus, so you might be better off using diplomacy alone.
Vicious critique.
If you are about to coerce a merchant, you can use a free action to viciously critique their wares. Roll a craft check. If you succeed on it, and if you roll a success on a coercion, you get a critical success instead. While interesting, I do not recommend mistreating merchants like this. Also, you need to succeed in 2 consecutive rolls, and the net benefit is that the merchant won't be unfriendly to you immediately. Just until the next day.
Cooperative crafting.
If an ally wants to aid you in crafting, you ignore the penalty from a failure in the aid check, and if they have this feat too, you can reduce the time of crafting items and increase the level of items you can craft. Fun date idea, cooperative crafting. Really fun group feat when 2 characters are good at crafting, with a solid benefit. Or, if your friends don't want to help you, you can get a hireling, I guess.
What's that up your sleeve?
You can use gambling lore instead of perception to see if someone is hiding an object from you. Not worth it, even for the cool name.
Master of Apprentice.
You can aid a creature with a lower modifier than you after you earn income or craft an item. Another great cooperative feat, but we all know you're abusing hirelings to get more stuff.
Kingmaker.
Triumphant boast. You boast of your heroic deeds, which makes it easier for you to demoralize a creature. Flavorful and interesting. If only you could use performance instead of intimidation, you could have a fun interaction going.
Predict weather.
You predict weather. This should be a survival action.
That's not natural.
You recognize creatures from outside the material plane easily. You decrease their stealth checks by 1 and gain +1 to initiative checks against them. The stealth penalty increases with your proficiency, and it affects a large part of enemies you will be facing.
Ambush tactics.
If an enemy rolls initiative with stealth, you can roll initiative using a lore related to that terrain. You can roll initiative like a normal person. It's probably gonna be higher.
Efficient explorer.
You grant your allies an additional exploration activity. I haven't played Kingmaker, but it's probably good in it?
Say that again.
If a creature next to you tries to lie or demoralize you, you can shove them. Then, if combat starts, you roll intimidation for initiative. According to the player's handbook, if the narrative allows it, you can use any skill for initiative. So if this exact scenario is playing out, I would just allow my players to roll intimidation instead of perception.
Too angry to die.
If you wake up from being unconscious, you can stand up and demoralize a foe as a reaction.
Yes.
Grab this as soon as you can.
Legends. Medical researcher.
When you craft healer's kits, vaccines, addiction suppressants, antidotes, antiplagues, elixirs of life, or other non-magical medical or healing items, you can use medicine instead of crafting. Not a bad thing to have, especially if you're spreading thin on skills.
Paragon Battle Medicine.
When you successfully use battle medicine, you can also reduce some condition affecting the target by 1. Depending what other feats you have, you can treat other conditions too. This has insane synergy, bringing all the healer feats together. You absolutely need this in your healer's kit.
Age of Ashes. Tomorrow must burn. Secret speech.
You can learn the speech of a secret society you have interacted with. If you have a secret societies in your game, this is definitely going to be useful, but I don't think every game has those.
Tweak appearances.
You can use crafting to give an ally a more important appearance, so their words carry more weight. You grant them a +1 to their diplomacy or performance, and that is on top of any aid check you can do. Also, the bonus increases with proficiency. This is really good, creating synergy between party members, and will give some fun interactions for sure.
Reveal machination.
You reveal that you've played a minor but recurring role in another humanoid's life. Roll a deception check. If you succeed, they are frightened 2 or frightened 3 on a crit. Yeah, this is the reverse flash meme. This is awesome, not only because it gives frightened 2 on a success, but just because it is.
The extinction curse. Juggle.
You can juggle up to 1 plus the number of hands you are using to juggle. You can still attack while juggling and cast spells. There's some jank interaction in this. If you know how to make this a broken interaction, leave a comment down below.
Ravening desperation. Ravening, whichever it is.
You get a +1 to survival and stealth if your health is half the maximum, or +2 if it's quarter. I will not rate this. Instead, I will ask you, what extent are you willing to push yourself for a +1? Will you risk your life for a bigger number? Will you walk the edge of the knife to save your success just a little bit more often?
Quest of the Frozen Flame, Broken Tusk Moon.
All of the animal. You get enough food for yourself and one additional creature when harvesting a large creature, and leave nothing behind. In terms of survivability, this is worse than Forager, but you leave nothing behind, so if you're being followed, I guess this is okay.
Tame Animal.
You attempt to tame a wild animal. On a success, they will not eat you for a month. On a crit, you become friends forever. This should just be the rules on how to tame an animal. No feat needed.
Spirit Speaker.
You speak with the spirit of an animal that recently died. Roll nature. On a success, the spirit recalls what happened in the last hour, or the last day on a crit. A very flavorful feat that unfortunately will not be used more than once. Should be a ritual.
Pathfinder Society Guide.
Vane's Escape. 2 actions and a deck of cards. You can automatically hide for all creatures perceiving you with sight. Technically, if you have foil senses, you can hide from all creatures, and all it costed you was 2 actions and a deck of cards. The fact that you can sneak too is crazy. You also get to move away from a dangerous situation. So that is an insane interaction.
Caden's Cognitive Crossover.
If you fail a lore check with one skill, you can retry it with a different lore skill immediately. Fun feat that gives you a second chance on a lore check, and your GM can flavor these different perspectives in interesting ways.
Secrets of Magic. Reveal True Name.
If you know a creature's true name, you can threaten a creature into doing what you want, or you can skip some steps and coerce them instead. True names are very interesting, but this barely gives you any benefit from using it.
The Fall of Flakestone.
Wilderness Spotter. You can roll survival instead of perception, but only in one type of terrain. Nope.
Treasure Vault.
Tattoo Artist. You can craft magical tattoos. Magical tattoos are very cool and interesting. If you want to dive deep into them and tat up your party, you definitely need this.
Quick Setup.
This is meant to be used with complex crafting, which is too complex for my little brain, so I'm just gonna say it's alright and move on.
Legendary Tattoo Artist.
You become legendary in crafting, and you add a +1 to attacks made with a tattoo. You also increase your resistance granted by tattoos by 1. The fact this gives you a legendary in crafting is pretty insane. While it is a level 15 feat, you could either use your skill increases somewhere else or retrain them later. Crafting builds really are spoiled for choice.
World Guide. Godless Healing.
You gain 5 more hit points from treat wounds, and you can use battle medicine again in an hour rather than a day. This is required by mortal healing, which we saw before. I love these atheist healing feats. Very good.
Eye of the Archlords. You open a third eye in your forehead,
allowing you to see beyond the veil. You gain Detect Magic for a minute, Dark Vision, and a +2 to perception checks to seek undetected or hidden creatures, and the DC for your hide and sneak also increases. After the third eye closes, you are dazzled for an amount of time equal to how long you had it open. B. And that is every skill feat that is not part of an archetype. Bye!